If you've spent any length of time watching online singing videos, you've probably heard your larynx mentioned at some point. But how do you control it? Welcome back to Singing Tips with LJD Studios, the space where we take difficult singing concepts and break them down so you can actually understand and implement them for better singing. I'm Laura, and today we are talking about how to control your larynx. Before we get into it, as always, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and if you haven't already, download my free guide, The 3-Tiered Approach to Becoming a Better Singer, linked in the description. That is your step-by-step guide to the foundations of singing so that you can understand how to sing both in your mind and your body. Lastly, you guys, you still have a week or so left to sign up to become a founding member of the LJD Studios Singers Toolbox membership program. Please sign up for that. Get your 2 free video feedback mini lessons, and then if it's not for you, go ahead and cancel and you won't be charged a dime. All right, without further ado, how do you control your larynx? If you haven't already seen my video on what is your larynx and what's it supposed to be doing, I highly recommend checking that out before watching this video. That's going to give you a little bit of background knowledge on what the larynx is. But suffice it to say, it is a structure surrounding the vocal cords, and movement or lack thereof in the larynx is going to impact your ability to move your vocal cords into the configuration that you need to produce the sound that you want to produce. So we want to be able to control the larynx so that we can, in essence, control our vocal cords. There's a lot of hype around a lowered laryngeal position, and I'll explain why that is in a moment. But I think it's beneficial to know how to both raise and lower your larynx. So let's just do that first. Take a finger to where your Adam's apple is or would be and swallow. And what you'll feel is your larynx go up and then come back down. So try that again. Okay, now try yawning. You can also put your hands sort of like around this structure here that you can see on my neck. This one's a little bit less obvious and harder for people, but when you get it in just the right spot, your hand that is, you'll feel your larynx lower, okay? So there are times when we want to raise the larynx and there are times we want to lower the larynx. How do we know when that is? Singing is all about balance, okay? And so when we go for a higher pitch, our brain is thinking up. And so the larynx tends to lift up, oftentimes too far, and then we experience strain. So that's why you hear so many people talk about keep your larynx low, keep your larynx low, keep your larynx low. It's not that you don't want it to lift a little bit. Potentially you do, especially depending on the type of sound you're trying to make. It's just that you don't want it to like yank all the way up and get caught in this sort of yell position. And so that's an instance when we would want to focus on lowering the larynx. But when we go for lower pitches, our brain is thinking down. And so the larynx tends to follow that. And sometimes it goes down too low. And that's a time when it might be beneficial to think up. Now, this is a gross generalization. And what you as an individual do might be that, or it might not be. So part of this is knowing what your habits are and working to create balance. Maybe your larynx isn't going up enough as you're going for a higher pitch, and you could benefit from lifting your larynx. So I really encourage you to kind of play and not think like, oh, I must always keep my larynx low. Let's focus instead on just having control over your larynx, and then you can lift it and you can lower it when you go for whatever pitch it is you're working on, and you can discover for yourself what creates a feeling of balance and then hopefully eliminates some strain for you in your singing. Okay, so in all things vocal technique, I always think it's really helpful to just try to notice what you feel, because that gives you something to aim for. When you're looking to control these muscles that we can't really like see as well as we can some other muscles in the body, it's really helpful to go, what am I feeling, so that I can recreate that experience when I'm singing, okay? So the words you choose don't matter, but try to be specific. I'm going to give you an example. What I feel in my body may not be what you feel in your body, and that's okay. I'm just giving you an example of how I go about labeling what I'm feeling. So I'm going to swallow again. And I'm going to really try to slow down that swallow. Like you're really swallowing like a big glob of peanut butter. Just so I have time to really be like, okay, what does it feel like when my larynx is in this super lifted position? So the first thing I notice is it feels like my ears sort of pinch in. And that might sound weird, but it doesn't need to mean anything to you. It means something to me. And that gives me something to aim for. I'm like, okay, pinch my ears in. And then I also feel my tongue sort of like push up against the roof of my mouth. And I feel a tightening and a narrowing through this part of my throat. So I've just identified 3 really specific things that I'm feeling so that if I want to lift my larynx at will, I can kind of aim for that. And I'm probably not going to hit it the first time, but it gives me something to aim for. Now I'm going to yawn and feel the larynx lower and describe what I feel. I mean, it feels like a yawn. That's one thing, right? I feel like my ears are popping, like they're pulling apart. And this same space that I said I felt sort of tighten and squeeze when I swallowed, I feel widen. Okay, so now that gives me something else to aim for. So that's what I'm going to start out with. Now that's a little bit vague, I realize, but I just think that that's always a good place to start. Of like, what am I feeling? So that you build up that mind-body connection. Okay, now let's go on to step 2. Okay, so step 2 of trying to control your larynx. An elevated larynx is assisted by brighter sounds. A lowered larynx is assisted by darker sounds. So we can just do that. We can make some bright sounds and you're going to feel your larynx go up, and we can make some dark sounds and you'll feel your larynx go down. A bright sound is sort of like nasally or twangy, like ba ba ba, nya nya nya, right? So I'm going to put my finger on my larynx, nya nya nya, and I feel it do exactly what it did when I was swallowing, ba ba ba. Okay, now I'm going to make a dark sound, or I sometimes call it like a dopey sound, da da da. Da, da, da. I can feel it go down. Da, da, da. Okay? So use really bright nasally sounds to practice lifting your larynx. Use really dark, dopey sounds to practice lowering your larynx. So now you know how to lift and lower your larynx on command. And it's just about discovering what's going to create the balance that I need in my body so that I can make the sound that I want to produce. Generally speaking, as we go up, the larynx likes to go up, so you might benefit from thinking about using some of those like dopey dark sounds as you're practicing your high notes. So you might go like da 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 da, right? And that's going to help you practice a lowered larynx. But try it with a lifted larynx too. Ba 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 ba, right? You might discover that maybe your larynx isn't lifting enough. So I really encourage some play with this. Same thing, when you're going for that lower pitch, you can try that sort of like dopier sound, ba 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 ba, and then ba 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 ba. That didn't work for me. I needed the lowered larynx, right? But maybe I go somewhere in between of da, and I'm playing with like lifting and lowering it to see if that takes me where I want to go. Being able to lift your larynx or lower your larynx is not just about eliminating strain and singing higher and singing lower and expanding your range, although that is one major component. You also need to consider what style do you want to sing in. So a more contemporary belty style is going to have a slightly higher laryngeal position than a more classical style. I could be singing the same pitch, but my larynx is going to be in a different position. So if I go ba 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 ba, that's going to be a higher position than ooh. That's a lower position. So being able to raise and lower your larynx also is going to give you the ability to sing with a certain style, right? So slightly higher for more contemporary styles, slightly lower for more classical styles, right? But play with it until you get the sound and the sensory experience that you are looking for in your singing. Good luck, you guys. Happy singing.